Well, hello. It's good to be with you again for another week of devotionals. I was thinking that throughout my life, I've been a pastor for over 40 years. During those 40 years, during much of that time, I've not only been a pastor, but I've also, like Paul, worked another job, and that job's varied a little. I was a van contractor and contracted with the school district to bus students. And later, then, for many years, I've been a contractor, and we built a company that really started out of our fellowship and now employs, a number of different men supporting their families. And I've had the wonderful opportunity to actually work with my son for a number of years. And now, as I'm stepping back away from the actual hammering and the actual working in the construction business, my son is stepping in and actually taking that business over. And over the years, we built many, many, many different buildings and types of structures. And I can say, even personally, as I've built our own home here, that in the beginning, when you begin to get the permits and then all that is finalized and that excavator moves in and that first big shovel of dirt is pulled out of the ground and set aside. It's a very exciting thing. It's a very exciting thing to begin and to start a building project like that, especially I think when it's again your own and you're going to know that this is the place that we've chosen to live, and we're making a home not only for myself and my wife, but then for our children. And now it's actually many years since I built our home here, and now our grandchildren are able to come and enjoy our home here, and so it's very exciting. I've learned one thing, that when you start a project, it can be very exciting, and but then as the days go on, and you can't just put up a home in a few days, takes really a few months. It might take a few years, really, if you do it yourself. I built this home myself, and so it didn't take a few years. It took about a year. And I'm telling you, I had to work every night on it, and weekends. We didn't do a vacation or have a lot of downtime. And as you get into the grind of actually, again, it's exciting to get those first scoops of dirt, to see, the footer being poured, and then very hard work to lay the block. But then what's really exciting is when that framing goes up. And that's really one of my most favorite parts of the building, because you see great changes very quickly. And the framing and the walls go up quickly, and then the trusses and the roof and so on. But it takes a lot of time. It's a lot of hard work. And so the initial enthusiasm of building something, you and I have probably built many things throughout our life. Even when we think about our families, it's an exciting thing to meet that potential spouse and to go out and the things that you do, and initially it can be very exciting, and then maybe after you're married for a few years, I mean, the newness and the excitement begins to wear off, and it takes a lot of commitment, and it takes really a lot of hard work, a lot of focus to just keep going. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about this week. We've been in this pandemic, we've been in this time that's very unusual, and we've started some new things. We're longing to get back to some of the old things. But whatever we put our hands to in life, again, to see the completion of it. I know when we were building on building projects, and for me personally, just building this house here, the finish work, the final touches, boy, you have a tendency to want to kind of stop. Well, it's livable. Things are pretty good, but what about that piece of molding? What about those final finishing touches? You don't really necessarily need them to live in the house. And I've been in many homes where you go in and it's livable, but it's not finished. And we want to finish. I know in life, I come to Christ, you've come to Christ. And now it's been a number of years. And you know what? Through the years, we've made some mistakes. We've maybe slowed up. Maybe we've got distracted a little. But it's important that we press through and we have a desire to finish well. And so I thought, is there an example of this in the scriptures? And I think there is. The children of Israel, the Israelites, had, because they had really been disobedient to what God had asked them to do, they never really observed the sabbatical laws. And one of those was that every 7 years they were to leave the land, lay fallow. Well, they never observed that. They never desired to follow what God had expressly told them to do. Well, because of this is one of the major reasons that they were taken into captivity by the Babylonians. And for every year that they refused to keep the sabbatical laws, well, God caused them to go into captivity. And so for 70 years, they were in captivity. Well, that time has come to an end, and we see that there's a group now of Israelites, and we see that there are basically 3 leaders that step forward and say, hey, we want to go back to Jerusalem, and we want to rebuild Jerusalem. Zerubbabel went back, Ezra and Nehemiah. And I want to look at Nehemiah a little bit. He is a great example of a man that had a vision, who wanted to do a work for God. And that work, it might have initially been exciting. You know, hey, I'm going to be allowed. The king is going to allow me to go back to Jerusalem. We're going to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. But that trek back was a long trek. And then actually building the wall, there are many obstacles. And yet Nehemiah stuck to his guns. And even when it wasn't easy, he said, you know what? I'm going to do a work for God. I'm going to do it. I'm going to see it to completion. That's the kind of heart that we need just in life, isn't it? Even where we're at now. You know, I want to see this thing through, and I want to stay close to Jesus as we go through this. I want to use this opportunity and overcome some of the obstacles and the barriers that have come into my life, and I want to press on in my walk with Jesus. And so certainly when you're physically building, and you could say we're spiritually building, we have a labor, and it's a labor of love. It's the labor of the gospel. And boy, we need to have that as our focus. Now, one thing that's very sad, there came a time when any Jewish individual who wanted to return to Jerusalem, they could have returned. But after years and years and years and years of being in Babylon and other countries that they were dispersed to, but mainly we're talking Babylon here, what had happened? They had integrated into the Babylonian culture and society. Many of them had begun to worship even the Babylonian gods. And so they were very comfortable. They had found, a satisfaction in being in Babylon. And so when it came time to return home, they really didn't have a desire to return home. So a couple million could have went home. I think I'm right in this, between 50 and 75,000. That's all that decided to leave Babylon. And so in this time, we do not want to become comfortable, and we don't want to become complacent. We do not want to allow other things to become the priority in our life. We've got to choose to always make Jesus the priority in our life. And so that's what we're going to be looking at this week. And we could begin our devotional time this week, our first time together, by simply saying where I'm at right now. Am I comfortable in Babylon? Have I allowed other things other than the things that, I haven't been able to be actually in church. I haven't been around other believers, my family of believers, as much as I normally have been. Has that been pretty good? Do I have a desire to see my brother? Am I remembering them? Am I praying for them? Do I have a longing to be in Bible study? Do I have a longing to corporately be in worship? Or is this kind of good? I can kind of do my own thing now, and I don't have to worry about. Hopefully, we're going to press on. And we know that there's been some obstacles. It's a struggle, but you know what? We're going to keep laboring for the Lord and in the gospel. And hopefully, let's look up. Let's trust Jesus. Let's be thinking and praying for those of the family of God that we've been separated from. And let's be asking God, how can I use this time to spread the good news of who Jesus is? Father, help us to do that even today, in Jesus' name. God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow.